It was a Sunday afternoon at Claire's apartment, the kind of gray, rainy Sunday where the windows looked foggy around the edges and the whole place smelled like coffee, laundry detergent, and the lemon candle Claire always said she hated but kept buying. I was on the living room floor with a stack of books beside me, holding a wooden duck in one hand and a framed photo of her brother's wedding in the other. "Explain to me again," I said, "why the duck can't stay on the second shelf." Claire stood with her hands on her hips, wearing an old green sweatshirt and black leggings. Her hair pulled up in a messy knot that looked like it had given up halfway through the day. "Because the second shelf is too emotionally heavy already." I looked at the shelf. "Claire, it's wood. It has energy. It has dust." "That too," she said, pointing at me. "Which is why you're here." I was 30 years old, and somehow this was what my Sundays had become. Helping my best friend reorganize her living room shelves because she woke up and decided the room felt emotionally cluttered. Claire was 29, which meant she was old enough to know that shelves did not have feelings and stubborn enough to argue that they did anyway. That was us. We met years ago in a campus coffee line when she accused me of stealing her drink because we both ordered the same thing. Iced coffee, 2 pumps vanilla, oat milk. I said only someone deeply suspicious would assume theft before coincidence. She said only a guilty man used the word coincidence that quickly. We ended up sitting at the same small table because the place was packed, and by the end of that hour, she had stolen 3 of my fries from the lunch I bought after coffee and told me my backpack made me look like I was training for a hiking trip I would never take. She was right. I still have never taken that hiking trip. After college, we stayed close in that casual way people promise to do and usually don't. But we did. Then close became closer. Then routine. Then something so steady that neither of us really questioned it. She had my spare key because I locked myself out twice in 1 month, and she told me she was tired of rescuing me from my own door. I had hers because her sink had leaked one night and I fixed it while she stood behind me reading instructions from her phone like a dramatic narrator. She knew I hated cilantro, that I pretended not to care about birthdays but always did, and that I got quiet when something was bothering me. I knew she overwatered plants, ate the fries off everyone else's plate, and cleaned when she was anxious. She called me when shelves needed moving, when her car made a sound she could not describe, when life felt too full but she did not want to say that part out loud. I called her when dates went badly, when something funny happened at work, when my sister annoyed me, or when the day just felt crooked and I needed it straightened out. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Her brother once opened the door, saw me carrying a toolbox and said, "Claire, your husband's here." Then walked away laughing before either of us could answer. My sister, Natalie, asked me last Thanksgiving if Claire was bringing dessert, or if we were still calling her just a friend, for legal reasons. Even the cashier at the corner store near Claire's apartment used to ask if my girl wanted her usual chocolate almonds whenever I stopped there alone. Claire always laughed it off. I laughed too. That was safer than asking why the joke always landed too close to something real. So Sunday, shelves, rain, Basil making everything harder. Basil was a compact little brown dog with white paws and the confidence of someone who had never paid rent. Claire claimed he was well behaved. I claimed he was a tiny landlord with fur. He kept stealing socks from the laundry basket and dropping them at my feet like he was helping. Claire's phone rang while I was trying to decide whether a stack of old paperbacks counted as visually calm. She checked the screen and sighed. "It's my mom. Don't let Basil destroy my system." "What system?" She pointed at me with the phone. "Don't start." Then she walked down the hall toward her bedroom, already saying, "Hi, Mom." "No, I'm not ignoring you," I literally answered. I smiled and turned back to the shelves. For maybe 2 minutes, everything stayed boring and normal. I moved books. Basil sniffed the empty shelf. Rain tapped softly against the windows. From the hallway, I could hear Claire's voice going up and down in that patient tone she used when her mother asked questions that were not really questions. Then Basil jumped. I did not even see where he came from. 1 second he was by the coffee table, and the next he was on the couch, paws landing right on top of Claire's leather journal. "Basil," I said, low in warning. He looked at me and wagged his tail. There was a dark smear across the cover. Fresh mud. Probably from the balcony. Because Claire liked to pretend her balcony plants were a peaceful hobby instead of a dirt project with leaves. I moved fast, more out of habit than thought. Claire loved that journal. She carried it from room to room, tucked it into tote bags, left it near her bed, her couch, sometimes her kitchen counter. I had seen it 100 times. I had never opened it. I reached for it to get it away from Basil before he made it worse. But when I picked it up, the cover slipped back. The page was already open, and there was my name, Mason. Then again a few lines down, Mason. Then again, Mason. I should have closed it immediately. I know that. I did know that even in the moment. But seeing your own name in someone else's handwriting does something strange to you. It pulls your eyes before your manners can catch up. I saw one full sentence. Claire is tired of pretending Mason is just her best friend. Everything in me stopped. The apartment did not. The rain kept tapping. Basil kept breathing through his nose like he had completed an important mission. Claire's voice drifted from the hallway, soft and distracted. But I stood there with the journal in my hands and felt the whole room tilt half an inch. I tried to close it then. I really did. But my eyes caught the next line before my hands moved. Mason looks at her like she is home and has no idea what that does to her. I stopped breathing for a second. Not because the words felt impossible. That would have been easier. If they had felt strange or absurd or completely out of nowhere, I could have panicked in a cleaner way. I could have told myself Claire was confused, or tired, or writing something dramatic she did not really mean. But that was not what happened. The worst part was that the words made sense. They reached back through 5 years of small moments and clicked into places I had refused to look at too closely. Sunday afternoons. Stolen fries. Her spare key on my ring. My coffee order in her kitchen. The way every woman I had dated seemed temporary, while Claire felt like a fact. I stood there, journal in hand, with Basil beside me on the couch and Claire's voice getting closer down the hall. And I realized I was not nearly as shocked as I should have been. Claire came back into the living room before I could move. That was the part one kept replaying later. Not the sentence itself, not even the way my name looked on the page. It was the timing. The tiny, unfair timing of it. If she had stayed on the phone for 10 more seconds, I would have closed the journal, wiped the mud off the cover, put it back exactly where Basil had knocked it from, and maybe spent the rest of my life pretending I had not seen anything. But she came back. She stepped out of the hallway with her phone still in her hand, her mouth already open like she was about to complain about her mother asking whether she was eating enough vegetables. Then she saw me. More exactly, she saw the journal. Her face changed so fast it almost hurt to watch. The Claire who had been rolling her eyes at shelves and making jokes about emotional clutter disappeared. Her shoulders pulled in. Her eyes dropped to my hands, then snapped back to my face. I closed the journal right away, too late to make it better. "Claire," I said. She did not answer. I set the journal down on the coffee table like it was breakable or like I was. Basil, still on the couch, gave one happy little tail thump against the cushion. That sound made the silence worse. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. Basil jumped up and got mud on it. I grabbed it before he stepped on it again. It was already open. "I didn't." "That is a terrible defense," she said. Her voice was calm, but not normal calm. It was the kind of calm people use when they are trying not to let one wrong breath turn into something bigger. "I know," I said. "I know it is. You didn't mean to read it." "No. But you did." I swallowed. "Yes." She looked down at the journal again. The leather cover had a faint streak of mud across one corner, like some stupid little signature from the dog who had ruined both our Sunday afternoons. Claire walked over and picked it up, holding it against her chest with one arm. She kept her phone in her other hand. The screen was black now. I wondered when she had ended the call. I had not heard her say goodbye. "How much?" she asked. I hated that question. Not because it was unfair, but because it was exactly the question she had the right to ask. "2 lines," I said. Her eyes closed for half a second. "Which 2?" I did not want to repeat them. Repeating them felt worse than reading them. It felt like taking something private and placing it on the floor between us. But lying would have been worse. The one about being tired of pretending I'm just your best friend, I said quietly. And the one about me looking at you like you're home. Her face went red, then pale, then red again. I had seen Claire embarrassed before. I had seen her walk into a glass door at a coffee shop and immediately accuse the door of moving. I had seen her send a voice memo to her boss that was meant for me and survive by making it funnier than it was. This was different. This was not funny. Not yet. She looked away from me and toward the shelves, like maybe one of the unfinished stacks of books could give her somewhere to hide. The living room looked exactly the same as it had 5 minutes before. Books on the floor. Coffee cups on the side table. Warm lamp in the corner. Rain sliding down the window. Basil sitting there with muddy paws and no understanding of consequences. Everything was normal and nothing was. I'm sorry, I said again. I know that doesn't fix it. No, it doesn't, she said. I should have shut it the second I saw my name. Yeah, I know. She pressed her lips together and nodded once, but it was not really agreement. It was more like she was keeping herself steady. I stood there feeling useless. I wanted to fix something. That was usually my role with Claire. Leaky sink? I could tighten a pipe. Heavy bookshelf? I could lift one side. Bad week? I could show up with coffee and make fun of her awful parking until she smiled. But there was no tool for this. No screw to tighten. No shelf to level. No joke that would not sound cheap. Claire hugged the journal tighter and stared at Basil. I cannot believe my own dog betrayed me. I almost smiled because the line sounded like her, but her voice cracked at the end, so I didn't. Claire. No, don't do the soft voice. What voice? That one, she said, pointing at me with the journal. The voice you use when you think I'm about to cry and you're trying to make yourself less tall. I looked down at my feet. I don't do that. You absolutely do. Normally, I would have argued. Normally, I would have said something like, I can't help being built like a responsible coat rack. She would have rolled her eyes. Basil would have sneezed. The whole thing would have slid back into our usual rhythm. But we were standing on the edge of something now, and both of us knew one wrong joke could turn into an exit. Claire took a breath. You should probably say something. I've been trying. No, she said. Not an apology. I heard the apology. I looked at her. She looked right back, but her eyes were guarded now, sharper around the edges. Say something real. Write in the comments. Was Claire right to demand the truth from me in that moment? Or should I have let her protect her pride and pretend nothing happened? That was when I realized I had a choice. I could make it smaller. I could say it was okay, that we didn't have to talk about it, that she did not owe me any explanation. All of that would have sounded kind. It would have sounded safe. It also would have been another way of running. And I had been running for years. So I said the first honest thing I could. The worst part is that I wasn't as surprised as I should have been. Claire went still. I heard the rain. I heard Basil lick one paw. I heard my own heart doing too much. What does that mean? She asked. It means. I rubbed one hand over my face. It means when I read it, I should have been shocked. I should have felt like it came out of nowhere. But I didn't. She did not move. The lines felt obvious, I said. Not obvious like I knew you wrote them. Not like that. But obvious like. I looked around her apartment because it was easier than looking right at her. Like there was a whole shape to my life that I kept pretending was just random pieces. Claire's grip on the journal loosened a little. I took that as permission to keep going, or maybe I just could not stop anymore. I call you my best friend because that sounds simple, I said. It sounds normal. It explains why I'm here every Sunday helping you move the same 6 books around until they feel spiritually balanced. Her mouth twitched, barely. But it doesn't explain everything, I said. It doesn't explain why I know your spare key is in the ugly blue planter even though you keep saying you're going to move it. It doesn't explain why Basil acts like I'm part of the furniture. It doesn't explain why your coffee order is the first thing I think of when I pass the place near my office. Claire's eyes dropped for a second. And it definitely doesn't explain why every woman I've dated in the last few years felt like someone I was visiting, I said. While you felt like where I came back to. She looked up at me then. There it was, the crack in the guard. Small but real. Mason, she said. And my name sounded different from how it had on the page. Less private, more dangerous. I've been pretending too, I said, just without writing it down. She let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. Lucky you. Not really. No, no, I said, because at least you were honest somewhere. That landed. I could see it. Claire looked away and blinked a few times. She was not crying, but she was close enough that I knew better than to point it out. For years, I said, quieter now. I kept telling myself that what we had was too important to mess with, that I was being mature by not naming anything. But really, I think I was just scared. Of me. Of losing you. Her face changed again, softer this time, and that almost made it harder. I stepped back a little, not because I wanted distance, but because I did not want her to feel cornered in her own living room. You mattered too much. That's the simple answer. If I said something and I was wrong, I didn't just lose a possible relationship. I lost you, the one person in my life who never felt uncertain. Claire's hand moved to the edge of the journal, thumb brushing the cover like she needed something to do. So you did the smart thing, she said. I gave a small, embarrassed laugh. I acted dumb and called it smart. She looked at me for a long moment. The room did not feel safe yet. Not fully. There was still hurt in her face, and I had earned that. I had crossed a line even if I tripped over it by accident. But under the embarrassment, under the anger she was trying to organize into something useful, I saw something else start to appear. Not relief exactly. Not happiness. Something more careful than that. Claire was looking at me like she had been bracing for a door to close, and instead she had heard it open a little. You're not saying this because you feel bad for me? She asked. No. Or because you read something private and now you think you have to make it less awkward. No, I said again. I'm saying it because it's true, and because you asked me to say something real. She held my eyes this time. Basil chose that exact moment to hop down from the couch, trot over to me, and sit on my shoe like he had decided custody. Claire looked at him, then at me. A tiny laugh escaped her before she could stop it. It was shaky and uneven, but it was there. Of course he picks now to make a statement, she said. I looked down at Basil. He's very committed to ruining privacy and footwear. Claire's smile faded quickly, but not all the way, and that was when I knew the worst thing had not happened. She was still hurt, still embarrassed, still holding the journal like a shield, but she had stopped looking like I was rejecting her. She was starting to understand that I had been standing on the same side of the line for a long time, pretending I could not see it. Claire kept looking at me like she was trying to decide whether the floor was solid. I knew that look. I had seen it when she was about to accept help but hated needing it. I had seen it when her old job cut her hours and she invited me over for dinner like everything was fine, then served burned pasta because she had been staring at the wall instead of the stove. I had seen it when she let people joke too close to her real feelings and then laughed louder than everyone else. She did not trust easily when something mattered. And this mattered. You really mean that? She asked. No sarcasm. No little smirk. No joke tucked into the corner of the sentence so she could escape through it if I gave the wrong answer. I nodded. Yes. That's it. That's it. You're not going to give me some long Mason explanation with 3 disclaimers and a hand gesture? I can do the hand gesture if it helps. Her mouth moved like she wanted to smile and was annoyed at herself for it. Don't. Then yes, I said. I really mean it. Claire looked down at Basil, who was still sitting on my shoe like a furry paperweight. Then she looked at the journal in her hands. Her fingers had relaxed around it, but she had not put it down. I did not ask her to. She walked to the armchair near the window and sat on the edge of it. Not curled up like she usually did. Not sideways with one leg tucked under her. Straight-backed, careful, like she was visiting her own apartment. I stayed near the coffee table. For once, neither of us seemed to know where we belonged in the room. The line, she said after a while. Yeah, the home one. My stomach tightened. You don't have to explain it. I know. She rubbed her thumb along the corner of the journal. I wrote it after your birthday. That caught me off guard. My birthday? Last year. I thought back. My 30th. Natalie had insisted I could not quietly turn 30 like a man hiding from a bill. So she organized dinner at my apartment. Claire came early with folding chairs and stayed late with cake containers, plastic cups, and that bossy attitude she used when pretending she had not done something kind. You wrote that after the party? I asked. Claire nodded, staring toward the window. After everyone left. I remembered that night in pieces. My sister laughing too loud in the kitchen. My friend Kevin trying to build a playlist and somehow playing the same song 3 times. Claire arguing with Natalie over whether the cake needed candles because she said 30 candles felt like a small campfire. Then later, after people had gone home, Claire stayed. Of course she stayed. I had told her she didn't have to. She ignored me, tied a dish towel around her waist like an apron, and started collecting plates. You stayed after your own party, she said, to help me clean. It was my kitchen. It was your birthday. It was still my kitchen. She gave me a look. See that exact annoying answer. I almost laughed, but she kept going. You were drying plates, she said, and I was rinsing them because your dishwasher was full of pans you swore were soaking but had clearly just been abandoned. That is a harsh description of my system. It was not a system, Mason. It was a pan graveyard. Fair. Her eyes softened, and for a second she looked like she was not fully in this Sunday anymore. She was back there, in my small kitchen, with music still low in the living room and cake crumbs on the counter. You were tired, she said. I could tell, but you kept smiling at me like there was nowhere else you needed to be. Like cleaning a kitchen with me after your own birthday party was not sad or boring or inconvenient. Like it was just easy. I did not know what to say to that, because I remembered it too. I remembered Claire standing at my sink with her sleeves pushed up, hair coming loose around her face, holding a sponge in one hand and accusing me of owning the world's least absorbent towels. I remembered leaning against the counter while she laughed at something I said. I remembered feeling settled in a way I did not think about too much because thinking about it would have required doing something. I went home that night, she said, and I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how normal it felt. You and me in your kitchen. No big moment. No dramatic music. Just dishes and leftover cake and you handing me a mug because you knew I wanted tea before I did. I remember the tea. You remember everything. Not everything. You remembered I like peppermint tea when I'm tired. That one's easy. No, she said, looking at me now. It's not easy to everyone. The words sat between us. I thought about all the women I had tried to date with half my attention. Nice women. Funny women. Women who did nothing wrong except not be Claire. I thought about how I would sit across from them at dinner and wonder what Claire would say about the waiter's weird mustache, or how she would have stolen my fries before the plate even cooled. I thought about how unfair that had been to everyone involved, including me, including her. You wrote that you were in trouble, I said. Claire's eyebrows lifted. You read that too? No, I said quickly. No, I mean, you said you went home and couldn't sleep, I guessed. She watched me for a second, then nodded. Yeah, I wrote that I was in trouble. My chest felt tight in a way I could not hide with a joke. I should have known that night, I said. You were busy turning 30 and pretending you didn't care. I did care. I know. Her mouth curved slightly. That's why I brought the cake you actually like instead of the fancy one Natalie wanted. The chocolate one with the bad handwriting? It said, "Happy birthday, old man." That was art. It looked like "Happy birthday, Oddham." She laughed then. Really laughed. Not for long, but enough that the room loosened around us. Basil lifted his head from my shoe, looked offended by the noise, then walked back to the couch and jumped up with a tired grunt. He circled twice, stepped dangerously close to the journal again, and collapsed against a pillow like he had been through something difficult. Claire looked at him and shook her head. I cannot believe he's the one who exposed me. Basil has been working toward this for years. He has not. He absolutely has. Every time I come over, he acts like I'm late to my own house. That's because you give him cheese. One time. Mason. Fine. A reasonable number of times. She pointed at Basil. You are a traitor. Basil snored. The sound was so rude and perfectly timed that both of us laughed again. It was shaky, but it was ours. Familiar. The kind of laughter that had carried us through flat tires, bad dates, family dinners, and one truly awful weekend when Claire tried to assemble a dresser from an online store and we ended up with 3 extra screws and a drawer that only opened when you insulted it. But now the humor did not hide anything. It just gave us somewhere to breathe. I looked at her, really looked at her, sitting there in the warm light with the journal on her lap and her cheeks still pink from everything she had not planned to say. She was Claire. The same Claire who texted me pictures of badly parked cars. The same Claire who put too much pepper on eggs. The same Claire who knew when I was pretending to be fine and never let me get away with it for long. And she was not just that. She had never been just that. I stepped closer, slowly enough that she could tell me not to. When she did not, I held out my hand. She looked at it, then at me. Then she placed her hand in mine. Her fingers were cool. Mine probably were too. It should have felt strange, but it didn't. That was the problem and the answer at the same time. It felt like something we had somehow been doing for years, just without admitting it. I don't want to pretend anymore, I said. Claire's eyes lifted to mine. That is a dangerous sentence. I know. Do you? Yes. She tilted her head a little. Because once you say something like that, you don't really get to tuck it back into a drawer and organize my shelves like nothing happened. I know, I said again. And I don't want to. Her fingers tightened slightly around mine. I'm done acting like you're only the person I call first when something happens, I said. Or the person I trust first. Or the person I look for first in every room, even when you're not there. Claire went quiet. I kept my voice steady because she deserved that much. I'm done making everything smaller just because I was scared of what it would mean if I said it properly. She swallowed. And what does it mean? It means I don't know exactly how to do this without messing up a little, I said. But I know I want to try. With you. Not around you. Not next to it. With you. Her eyes searched my face like she was looking for the catch. There wasn't one. For once in my life, I had not brought a backup joke or a safer version. Claire stood from the chair, still holding my hand. She was close enough now that I could see the tiny crease between her eyebrows, the one she got when she was trying to be brave without making a big show of it. The rain kept sliding down the windows. The shelves stayed half empty. Basil snored like an old man on the couch. Claire looked at our hands, then back at me. What happens now? She asked softly. I looked at Claire standing there with my hand in hers, and for once, I did not try to make the moment smaller. That had always been my move. Make the joke. Step sideways. Keep the important thing close enough to feel, far enough away to deny. I had gotten good at it. Too good. But Claire was watching me now, waiting for an answer that could not be hidden under another joke about shelves or Basil or my apparently tragic spice drawer. So I stepped a little closer. What happens now? I said. Is I stop acting like I don't know. Her fingers tightened around mine. Just a little. That sounds very confident, she said. It's mostly fear with better posture. That got the smallest smile out of her. There he is. I'm serious. I know, she said. That's what's weird. I laughed under my breath, then looked at the journal still resting on the armchair behind her. If your journal hadn't beaten me to the truth, I think I would have gotten there eventually. Claire lifted an eyebrow. Eventually. Yeah. That is a very Mason answer. It's honest. It's also the answer of a man who took 3 months to decide where to hang one picture. That wall had complicated light. That wall had drywall. I was trying not to be reckless. Claire's smile warmed, but her eyes stayed careful. You alphabetized my spice drawer last month. That was helpful. That was nesting. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. She pointed at me. See? You know I'm right. I know you called coriander angry cilantro and put cinnamon next to garlic powder. Someone had to step in. She laughed, and this time the sound was softer, less shaky, more like herself. But even with the joking, neither of us moved away. Her hand stayed in mine. My thumb brushed the side of her finger once, almost by accident, and her eyes dropped to the movement like she felt it everywhere. The room got quiet again. Not empty quiet, not awkward quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when both people know the next thing matters. Basil snored on the couch, completely useless as emotional support. Claire looked up at me. Mason. Yeah. If we do this, I don't want to lose what we already have. That was the sentence. The one I had been afraid of for years, only she was brave enough to say it out loud. I don't either, I said. I mean it. I don't want us to become strangers who used to know each other's coffee orders. We won't. You don't know that. No, I said. I don't. But I know we've been acting like this is safer unnamed, and I'm not sure it is anymore. She breathed out slowly. I lifted my free hand, then paused before touching her. I wanted her to see the choice before I made it. I wanted her to have time to step back, roll her eyes, tell me I was being too serious. Anything. She did not step back, so I touched her cheek. Just lightly. Claire leaned into my hand before I had even settled it there, like she had been tired of holding herself up. Her eyes closed for 1 second, and that did something to my chest I did not have a clean name for. I had hugged her 100 times. Maybe more. Quick hugs in parking lots. Long hugs after bad days. Side hugs at family dinners when someone said something dumb and we both needed to laugh without being rude. I knew the shape of her next to me, but this was different because we both knew what it was. I bent my head slowly. She met me halfway. The kiss was not dramatic. There was no sudden music, no crashing furniture, no big movie moment where everything else vanished. Basil did not even wake up. It was quiet. It was Claire's hand letting go of mine only so she could rest it against my shirt. It was my palm against her cheek and the softest breath from her when our mouths touched. It was 5 years of almost finally losing their excuse. And the strangest thing was how natural it felt. Not casual. Not small. Just natural. Like the room had been holding its breath for a long time and finally stopped. When we pulled back, Claire kept her forehead against mine. Neither of us said anything right away. I could feel her smile before I saw it. Then she whispered, "Basil is going to be unbearable now." I laughed, quiet and close. He already thinks he did all the work. He did kind of do all the work. Please do not give him that kind of power. Claire leaned back enough to look at me. Her cheeks were pink again, but this time she did not look like she wanted to disappear. He's going to demand cheese. He was already doing that. True. I brushed my thumb once along her cheek, then let my hand drop because I did not want to overdo it. We were still us. That was the thing I kept noticing. The room had changed, but it had not turned into some place I didn't recognize. Claire was still wearing the old green sweatshirt. The shelves were still half empty. My coffee was still going cold on the side table. Basil still looked like he owned the couch. Only now, when Claire looked at me, I did not have to pretend I did not understand the look. A week later, the shelves were finally organized. Mostly. Claire stood in the middle of her living room, staring at them with the same expression she used when deciding whether a restaurant menu was trying too hard. "I don't like your system," she said. "My system is logical. Your system puts travel books next to board games. Both involve people making bad decisions with maps." She narrowed her eyes. "And why are my candles on the top shelf? Because Basil can't reach them. Basil has never once shown interest in candles. He has taste for chaos. We can't assume limits." At the sound of his name, Basil climbed directly into my lap, even though I was sitting on the floor surrounded by the last few books. He turned in a circle, stepped on my thigh with one sharp little paw, and settled like he had won something legal. Claire crossed her arms. "He thinks he gets custody. He does seem confident. He exposed my private thoughts and got a family out of it. Of course he's confident. I looked down at Basil. You're lucky you're cute. He sighed like the burden was heavy. Claire laughed and reached over me to place the final framed photo on the middle shelf. It was one from my birthday, the night she had told me about. Someone had taken it while we were in the kitchen. I was holding a towel. Claire was laughing at something I must have said. We were standing close, not touching, but close enough that looking at it now made me wonder how we had fooled ourselves for so long. She adjusted the frame, then glanced back at me. There it was, that private smile. The one I used to file away under friendship because I did not know where else to put it. The one I used to carry home without admitting it had followed me. This time I smiled back and let it be what it was. Not a misunderstanding. Not a joke everyone else saw before we did. Not a thing we had to keep unnamed so we could keep it safe. Claire was still my best friend. She was just no longer only that. And for the first time I did not have to pretend otherwise.